Imagine a land where every stone tells a story, where ancient walls witness both faith and fury. This is Israel and Palestine, a battleground of beliefs, histories, and aspirations. For over a century, this region has been marked by conflict, its people caught in a web of political strife, cultural divides, and heartbreaking loss. As the world watches, we must ask, what drives this seemingly endless cycle of violence? In this exploration, we'll dive deep into the roots of this conflict, the human stories behind the headlines, and the quest for a lasting peace in a land divided. In the heart of the Middle East lies a land steeped in history and spirituality, where the sun casts shadows on ancient ruins and vibrant markets echo with the calls of street vendors. Yet, beneath this picturesque facade simmers a profound conflict that has shaped the lives of millions. In a small Palestinian village, a mother cradles her child, hoping for a future free of fear, while just a few kilometers away, an Israeli father dreams of safety for his family. As their paths intertwine, we begin to uncover the complex tapestry of the Israel-Palestine conflict, a narrative of resilience, struggle, and the enduring hope for peace. 1. Historical context. The roots of the conflict. The Israel-Palestine conflict is rooted in a century of competing nationalisms and colonial legacies. In the late 19th century, the rise of the Zionist movement sought to establish a Jewish homeland in response to widespread anti-Semitism and persecution in Europe. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 further fueled this ambition by supporting a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then under Ottoman rule. This declaration conflicted with promises made to Arab leaders who sought independence from Ottoman rule. As Jewish migration intensified during the British Mandate, 1920 to 1948, tensions grew between Jewish settlers and the Arab population. The local Arabs felt increasingly threatened by the influx of Jewish immigrants and the potential loss of their land. Clashes erupted, resulting in violent confrontations, notably the Arab Revolt of 1936 to 1939, which sought to resist British rule and Jewish settlement. The United Nations Partition Plan in 1947 aimed to create separate Jewish and Arab states, but was met with fierce opposition from Arab nations. Following the declaration of the State of Israel in 1948, war broke out, leading to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, a tragedy known as the Nakba. This pivotal moment laid the groundwork for decades of conflict. The narratives of both peoples, woven through historical grievances, territorial claims, and aspirations for self-determination, continue to influence the ongoing struggle for peace and justice in the region, illustrating how deeply intertwined their fates have become amidst competing historical narratives. 2. The cycle of violence. The Israel-Palestine conflict has been characterized by a seemingly endless cycle of violence and retaliation. This cycle is fueled by deep-seated grievances, security concerns, and historical injustices. After the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the region witnessed sporadic violence, but it was the Six-Day War in 1967 that marked a significant escalation. Israel's military victory resulted in the occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, and other territories, further inflaming tensions. The First Intifada, or uprising, began in 1987, ignited by Palestinian frustration over Israeli occupation. It was marked by protests, civil disobedience, and violent confrontations, bringing global attention to the plight of Palestinians. In response, Israel intensified its military presence and policies in occupied territories, leading to further violence and resentment. The Second Intifada, which erupted in 2000, was even more violent, characterized by suicide bombings and military incursions. The use of force from both sides, coupled with the rise of militant groups, transformed the conflict into a humanitarian crisis. Each cycle of violence has resulted in significant casualties, loss of life, and suffering on both sides, perpetuating animosity and distrust. Attempts to quell this violence often fall short, as each act of aggression is met with retaliation, creating a vicious cycle. The human cost of this ongoing conflict is staggering, with families torn apart and communities shattered, highlighting the urgent need for a comprehensive peace process that addresses the root causes of violence and fosters reconciliation. 3. The human cost. Personal stories. At the heart of the Israel-Palestine conflict are the personal stories that illustrate the profound human cost of this ongoing struggle. Each statistic of casualties, displacement, and suffering represents a life profoundly affected by the conflict. Take Fatima, a 24-year-old Palestinian woman living in Gaza. Fatima dreams of becoming a doctor, but faces insurmountable challenges due to the ongoing blockade and limited access to educational resources. Her daily life is marked by the sound of sirens and the uncertainty of whether she will be able to pursue her aspirations in a territory where opportunities are scarce. On the other side, David, a young Israeli soldier, grapples with the moral dilemmas of his duty. Stationed at a checkpoint, he is tasked with ensuring security, but witnesses the daily struggles of Palestinian families trying to navigate the obstacles of occupation. David feels the weight of responsibility, realizing that the actions he takes affect not just his fellow Israelis, but also the lives of ordinary Palestinians. These personal narratives reflect the broader tragedy of a conflict that has dehumanized both sides. In the face of violence, fear, and loss, these individuals long for a future where they can live in peace. Their stories reveal that, behind the political rhetoric and headlines, lie real people with dreams, hopes, and the fundamental desire for a better life. Recognizing these human experiences is crucial for fostering empathy and understanding in the pursuit of peace. 4. Attempts at peace. The Oslo Accords and beyond. Over the decades, numerous attempts have been made to resolve the Israel-Palestine conflict, with varying degrees of success and failure. The most notable attempt was the Oslo Accords, signed in the early 1990s, which represented a breakthrough in peace negotiations. The Accords established a framework for a two-state solution, envisioning an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. For many, this was a hopeful moment, signaling a shift from decades of hostility to a possible path toward reconciliation. However, the optimism was short-lived. While the Accords led to the establishment of the Palestinian Authority and some degree of self-governance in parts of the West Bank, key issues remained unresolved, including the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the future of Israeli settlements. As negotiations faltered, violence erupted again, most notably during the Second Intifada, eroding trust between the two sides. Subsequent initiatives, such as the Camp David Summit in 2000 and the Annapolis Conference in 2007, aimed to reignite the peace process, but ultimately failed to yield lasting agreements. The Israeli settlement expansion and ongoing military operations have further complicated the landscape, leading many Palestinians to feel that the two-state solution is increasingly unfeasible. These failed attempts underscore the complexity of the conflict, highlighting the deep-rooted mistrust and competing narratives that hinder progress. Without addressing these core issues, any path to peace remains fraught with challenges, necessitating a renewed commitment to dialogue and understanding. 5. The role of external powers. The Israel-Palestine conflict is not only a regional issue, it is also heavily influenced by external powers and international politics. Since the mid-20th century, various nations have played significant roles, often complicating the dynamics of the conflict. The United States has traditionally been a staunch ally of Israel, providing substantial military aid and political support. This unwavering backing has fortified Israel's position, but has also drawn criticism for neglecting Palestinian rights and aspirations. Conversely, several Arab nations have historically supported the Palestinian cause, offering political and, at times, financial support to various factions, particularly the Palestine Liberation Organization (PLO) and Hamas. This backing has often been driven by regional politics, with countries like Iran openly supporting groups that oppose Israel. The involvement of these external powers has led to a complex web of alliances and hostilities, further entrenching the conflict. International organizations, particularly the United Nations, have sought to mediate peace and offer humanitarian assistance. However, their effectiveness has been limited due to political divisions among member states and challenges in enforcing resolutions. The UN's inability to create a unified approach to the conflict has often resulted in frustration among those seeking justice and stability. In recent years, shifts in international politics have introduced new dynamics, such as the normalization of relations between Israel and some Arab states through the Abraham Accords. These developments raise questions about the future of Palestinian statehood and the role of international powers in advocating for a just resolution. 6. The current situation, a fractured landscape. As of 2024, the situation in Israel and Palestine remains fraught with tensions and uncertainty. The political landscape is deeply divided, with Palestinian governance fragmented between the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza. This internal division complicates efforts to present a unified front in negotiations and diminishes the prospects for a coherent peace process. The West Bank experiences ongoing Israeli settlement expansion, which many international observers view as a violation of international law. These settlements not only encroach upon Palestinian land, but also exacerbate tensions between communities. In Gaza, the humanitarian situation has reached critical levels. The ongoing blockade has led to widespread poverty, unemployment, and limited access to essential services, affecting the daily lives of nearly 2 million Palestinians. Repeated military confrontations between Israel and Hamas have resulted in significant loss of life and infrastructure destruction, further entrenching animosity. Israeli society is also grappling with security concerns. Frequent rocket attacks from Gaza and the fear of terrorism have created an atmosphere of distrust and fear. This climate often influences political decisions, with hardline parties gaining popularity and prioritizing security measures over dialogue. Despite these challenges, grassroots movements and civil society organizations are emerging on both sides, advocating for peace and coexistence. These efforts demonstrate a desire for dialogue amid despair, suggesting that even in a fractured landscape, there is hope for a different future. As the international community continues to watch, the need for a renewed commitment to a peaceful resolution remains imperative. 7. The quest for hope. Grassroots movements. Amid the despair and ongoing violence of the Israel-Palestine conflict, grassroots movements and initiatives are emerging, seeking to foster dialogue, understanding, and reconciliation. Organizations such as Combatants for Peace, which consists of former Israeli soldiers and Palestinian fighters, exemplify this quest for peace. By sharing personal stories and experiences, these individuals aim to humanize the other and break down the walls of mistrust that have built up over decades. Cultural exchanges and joint educational programs are also playing a vital role in bridging divides. Initiatives like the Parents Circle, Families Forum bring together bereaved families from both sides, creating spaces for healing and understanding. These efforts emphasize that peace is not solely a political issue. It requires human connection and empathy. Youth movements are particularly influential in this regard. Many young Palestinians and Israelis, tired of the status quo, are using social media to advocate for change. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok allow them to share their narratives, challenging stereotypes, and mobilize support for peace initiatives. The power of storytelling in these platforms is significant, as it allows for direct communication between individuals who may never meet in person. 8. The role of social media. In the digital age, social media has become a powerful tool in shaping perceptions and narratives around the Israel-Palestine conflict. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok have emerged as battlegrounds for public opinion, allowing individuals from both sides to share their experiences and advocate for their causes. This democratization of information has empowered voices that were previously marginalized, enabling a broader discourse on the complexities of the conflict. Social media has the potential to foster empathy and understanding by presenting personal stories that humanize the conflict. Activists use these platforms to highlight the daily struggles faced by ordinary people, bringing attention to issues such as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza or the impact of violence on Israeli communities. Hashtags like Free Palestine and Stand with Israel allow users to engage with and amplify various perspectives, creating a global dialogue that transcends geographical boundaries. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a profound tragedy that has persisted for generations, intertwining the lives of millions in a complex web of historical grievances and aspirations. While the path to peace appears fraught with challenges, it is essential to remember the humanity that exists on both sides. The stories of individuals like Fatima and David remind us that behind the politics and violence are real people, families, dreams, and hopes for a better future. As we reflect on this enduring conflict, let us foster empathy and understanding, advocating for a dialogue that transcends borders and seeks to heal the wounds of a divided land. In this ever-evolving narrative, the quest for peace must continue, driven by the belief that even in the darkest times, hope can be found in the hearts of those who dare to dream of a shared future. As the world watches, may we strive to amplify the voices that seek reconciliation, for it is only through understanding and compassion that the cycle of violence can be broken, paving the way for a brighter tomorrow.